welcome to the show here, Road Back 2500. I love this show. It forces me to stay honest, and I thank people for being out there to kind of keep me honest with this journey that I'm on. So I want to talk a little bit about just what's going on. It's been a really hectic week, and I have not had as much time to study as I would have liked. I am certain that if I didn't have this show, I wouldn't find the time to study. And one thing I just want to stress for myself personally is that the studying the chess, obviously there's like this goal of coming back to play, but it's also just something kind of enjoyable that I enjoy studying. I enjoy looking at chess positions, and I assume that's the case for why most people are studying. Yes, there's the inspiration to want to get better and to do all that stuff, but there's just a lot of beauty and joy in the game that I find. And the playing well is kind of like a carrot dangling in front of that study. In any case, it's been really hectic because the ChessDojo's been going on. The kids are still at home, but I have news to report. The kids, man, we sent them off. We sent them off to daycare today. It was the first time. It's not clear if it's going to stay that way, but it's like, if that sticks, which again, I'm not sure that's going to stick, because if anybody gets sick, like the whole school has to get disinfected and stuff, But if that happens, then, maybe tournaments can start being played or something, at least round robins. I kind of, I can't imagine the National Open actually happening in September. I just simply can't imagine it. And poor Kostya is dreaming of that. It would be great. If I was certain that was happening, I think I would try to organize to do it myself. But I just am doubtful that you're ever going to have in the near future like a room full, a gallery of hundreds of people playing in the same room. Another thing, actually, the sirens remind me of that's hectic in my life right now is I have to find a new place to move to. And it's kind of hard to find a place when it's like hard to move to a different place. If you know a place that you think I should move to that has cool schools and maybe some chess culture, that would be helpful to me. All right, so what I was able to do in this last week is it's kind of an interesting thing where something people say sometimes, and I don't know how true it is, but they say that you have to know some chess history in order to be a reasonable chess player. And I really don't know how much I really believe that, but I do think that this match with Kasparov and Karpov, all of the matches in the 80s and then 90, was one of the greatest of all times, but also definitely something I could not appreciate either as a chess player or as a chess fan, both because I wasn't on the level yet, but also I didn't understand it. It felt in the years, decades after, and then during the time, as if something was foul about it. Like the way a lot of the draws happened, I didn't understand why they were draws the whole way, in which it was 5-0 and then the match stopped, when it was 5-2.5 or something. Really weird. And so now I think it's actually a big part of my chess development, even now, that I understand what was going on in this match. Not, of course, just as a historian or something, though I would love to read some insight into what was actually going on. I'm currently reading this book by Nikitin talking about Kasparov. I reviewed volume 1 of this thing. And Nikitin in this volume is less of a coach and is more of a second, though he's definitely still helping the guy out. But the point is, I need to understand a lot of these games. I feel like it was a revolution, the Kasparov revolution that happened in the 80s, and I only appreciate it now as both a player and a fan, and it's quite possible that, like, people appreciate how Carlsen has changed the game, but it's hard to call it a revolution. It feels more like a technical evolution or something, but I have a feeling later we might look on it as a full-scale revolution. In terms, and what I mean by revolution with Kasparov is like the value of initiative in particular, and how you could really press, how you could calculate. Was it really? I don't know. You could say maybe it was all done before, but to me, it's always felt like a revolution. So I thought what I'd do today is talk a little bit about this game that I had seen before, never properly understood. All right. So one thing about my own chess now is at some point I'm going to need to work out like an opening repertoire. And I think I want to largely base a lot of it on Kasparov at this time. I think this is the way to play against the Queen's Gambit decline. And by this, I mean taking on d5 to get the Carlsbad structure. And this position, yeah, I really believe in this as for white, but this game I think really turns out to be a very a variation that I want to say has got to be still valuable today. So for example, let me show you what happens. Knight f6, e3, castles, bishop d3, c5. And when you think about it, what's really going on here with c5 is black is getting a favorable version of the Tarrasch defense, right? He's going to put the knight on c6, and it's the same deal, except it's questionable that the bishop on, if the bishop on f4 is that good of a piece, and it's questionable if the bishop on d3 is that good of a piece. So this seems like a very critical variation to me now as well. One thing I discovered, I'm probably the last person on earth to discover this, but on chess.com you can turn on this little opening explorer, and I don't know how many games it's got, but for a position like this it'll start showing me some games. It's not, where it's not great is it won't show me yet like who's played it, which is a little bit obscene. But what I'm hoping, this is a message for chess.com out there and for ChessSpace. ChessSpace, your program runs like it's from 1998 still. Honestly, in 1998, I felt it ran better than it does for me now. Maybe that's because I'm old and I can't figure out your technology. I'm certain that's the case, but you need to figure it out. The thing is taking forever for me now, ever since the cloud thing happened. So if chess.com or somebody else figures out a way where I can access it online and I don't have to run this like clunky chess-based thing that sucks up all my computer, please let me have it. More puzzle grind. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. You know what? I've had a long day. Let me see if I can fix this here. Edit stream info, please. Let's figure this out. No, man, this isn't puzzle grind. One thing we want to say about Kostya and David is they've been crushing recently with the Twitch, and I have been doing less of it. In any case, I'm hoping that now shows up with the correct signage underneath there. Okay, so this position, I think the way Nikitin presents it, that Kasparov did not really have this prepped out, which is surprising given how prepped out he was in so many other variations, like a memory that I know I would never be able to have. So knight f3, knight c6, castles, and now bishop g4. I have a lot of questions in this position. I'm not going to talk too much at length about it because I'm certain it's all like theoretical stuff. But like, does white really have an advantage, for example, after c takes d4? I'm not sure. I assume, c takes d4, we're going to play knight takes d4. For example, I'm not even sure black should take. If he takes, then maybe I can say, I can believe that we have a small something something. Nothing special, but I can believe that we have a small something something here. In any case, we're going to get this amazing position here with bishop g4, snip, h3, takes, d4, knight e4. And like I said, I'm pretty sure both players are now firmly out of their opening knowledge. One thing that's so impressive to me about Kasparov back in the day is the ability to create grief in a position like this. Let's say some obvious things. The light square bishop is unopposed, so if white has anything in this position, it's along the light squares. So here's a great variation that I know that I would spend all my time, thinking about it, and would go something like this: knight e4, bishop e4, snip. So the idea is, if you take on e3, you've basically got nothing. So queen h5, we're hitting the bishop. f5, bishop f5, g6, bishop g6, holy moly. And actually at any point here we can throw this in. And this is a position I know that if I saw this in my mind's eye, I would very much distrust myself. But there's a couple key variations that only in hindsight could I be like, oh, maybe I understand this. If you protect with the queen. By the way, I did this all. I haven't turned the computer on. I might turn the computer on at some point during this broadcast, but I didn't turn the computer on during my analysis. I don't want to turn the computer on. I said to myself here, at the minimum, I've got bishop h7, queen h7, snip, snip, and check. Maybe there's something better, but at the minimum, I've got that after queen e7. So then it becomes a question of snip, snip, king h8. And the following variation Nikitin gives in the book, but I did not look, and I had a hard time finding this variation. And one reason I want to stress it is, like, let's say you're playing this position and you want to be better or something. If you don't have anything after knight e4 and then he takes on e3, you don't have anything with queen h5, then your position is basically, I don't know, it's equal, or you've got nothing. Okay, so that's why this is like a really amazing variation, because I know that myself, I would have a lot of trouble calculating this out to the end. So anyways, hg, rook ad1. Oh man. Oh man. And yeah, there's big trouble here with both lifts, d7 hits, and so the only real way would be bishop d4. And it took me forever by myself to be like, okay, bishop d4 is in fact the problem. And here too, this was really hard for me to break this down, and eventually, Nikitin gives this variation that I came up with something similar. It goes like this, and then you got to play like bishop e3 here, with the notion that you've got queen here, and you can put the queen on g file first, but this is going to be the same deal. Now, did Kasparov see this when he played knight e4 on move 13? Interesting question. You could get to this position and say, okay, I trust the fact that I'm going to find something. I don't know if I would. Like, to me, when I see these positions, I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And the nice thing for white, I guess we should say, is he is at least guaranteed a draw in all these positions, at least with h takes g6. Okay, so here we go. Karpov plays beautifully in this game, at least the beginning. Bishop e7, totally solid. One thing I want to say about this match that's only clear to me in hindsight, when the other match that I haven't studied nearly as many World Championship matches as I should have, I kind of need a book to guide me. I think that's a big thing about it, actually. And the other book that was really great, of course, that I'm sure many of you have read, is the Tall 1960 match. I'll put a link in the description. And that match, one of the things that's very similar actually to this match is, though it's more pronounced, I think, even more pronounced in that match, is Botvinnik was trying to be Mr. Solid Man, and Tall is trying to be the I'm I'm the crazy attacking dude, man, trying to get the imbalances. There's a lot of positions here in this match. Well, I say this match, there's more than one match, where Kasparov is making bad moves, objectively bad moves, to get the funky. And of course, one of the beautiful things about this time in the 80s is there's no computer, so there's no, like, the opening thing is all about your own creativity and your judgment about what you think is going on in the position instead of the computer. Though I think that's still, one nice thing is, one theory I have is a lot of positions would be more dangerous if you didn't look at the position, because you would be able just to bring your human sensibility to it, and the guy using the computer won't see a lot of lines that you're looking at just with human eyes. Okay, so this next move I can imagine playing myself just because it feels like it has to be right. Rook a d1. But would I have missed a lot of the key ideas? Absolutely. So there's an amazing position here with Queen b6, which certainly looks like the normal move. Let's say the obvious. You cannot take because of snip and snop. So Queen b6, Bishop d6 exclam, and the beautiful point is here, and the game's over. Again, unopposed light square bishop. So that's the problem with Queen b6. Of course, there might be a better move for black, but it's clear you're suffering after Bishop d6 if you can't take the thing. So Queen a5, Karpov plays this thing. Knight g3. So one of the beautiful things about the Kasparov revolution to me is so much of what he does is kind of, let's call it scientific. Like there's a reasoned, it's not just attack for attack, though we're going to see that. We're going to see an example of going a little bit over the top, I think, in this game. But having a sense of, like, this position has to at least be compensation for white. And many games, many Kasparov games, I can't even, we're talking probably I was about to say in the hundreds. I have no basis for knowing that it's 100 or whatever, but many, the knight ends up on f5. And there's even a great video that he did with Plasket back in the day. This is before chess video became such a thing. I got a lot out of anyway, where he talks about the knight on f5 just being worth more. In any case, here we go. D-E, F-E, and Karpov plays beautifully Queen a2. Now, when I say beautifully, I have not checked this with the computer. I might well do in the course of this hour here. But the beauty of this, just from a defensive standpoint, is I've stolen the pawn, these pawns are split, and when I'm saying I'm just trying to channel Karpov here, and I have got the key defender, the queen, near her man, and all of my pieces are reasonable. Therefore, I shouldn't be terrible. Nota bene, everybody's working for white. Everybody's working. So here I thought a really interesting decision, which characterizes a lot of the match to me. I feel like an older Kasparov wouldn't have played this. I could be wrong about that, but he goes now for this thing. And actually, later I am going to ask the computer because I'm suspicious of this bishop h6. Mostly because I feel that at this point, black can always sack the exchange with g6 and be at least fine. We're gonna test that hypothesis, I think. Okay. In that variation, the queen is hanging after queen h4. I'm sure. Oh, I'm sorry. I know what you guys are saying. Right, I did something poor here. No, I don't have to. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I know exactly what you guys are saying. You're saying I can't do that, and that's true. so yeah, that's right. I needed to getting the queen. Yeah, queen g4, king h8. Yeah, it's even more tricky than on king h8. I know exactly what I meant. Bishop e3, snip, snop. Now we go queen h4. Wherever he goes, now we go queen g3. And one of actually the key tricks on this is that if h7, then I go bishop e3, and at the end I'm going to have this check. Yeah. Sometimes very hard to talk and speak at the same time, and sometimes I'm not great with looking at the chat at the same time. That's funny. Counterspark is talking about the Topalov-Kramnik match. I'm still upset at Topalov for that match. I don't know. I've carried a grudge about that for a long time, and I think the guy probably isn't that bad of a guy, but he surrounded himself with the most criminal aspect. And one thing that's interesting about this match too is there's so much shady business going on that I don't even understand. And this book is a very interesting perspective, but not very well written in terms of helping me understand anything that's really going on behind the scenes. He kind of touches on stuff, but I don't really gain the sense that I'm within this Soviet chess world and the politics of it. I don't, a lot of times a book, I feel if it's really well written, right, will give you at least a feeling of like, oh, I have a sense of a little bit of what these dynamics are. And maybe it's just too hard even to present. But that's what I'd be interested in. I am going to do a little bit of Gena Sosonko reading, who's been more of a historian on this stuff, and I haven't really explored that. And again, it's weird, like I'm like many chess players, I'm interested in chess history, but I'm not ready to go down the full rabbit hole yet. Okay, so let's go down this road here. And the thing that I was talking about was in this position, the decision bishop h6, which I feel suspicious of. And I'm going to guess that Karpov felt suspicious of it too, and it's what makes him go on tilt later. And the question, and I'll ask the computer, but I'll just tell you my human sensibility first, is knight e7, queen e7 is no bueno because of bishop d6. So knight e7, queen b7, and because, let's call it the London bishop, in honor of those terrible people, the London players, is hitting b8, yeah, we can claim maybe that white's a little bit better here. Better rooks, better bishops. And one suspicion I have is that in this position, that Kasparov missed, that on queen e4, this is not a variation given in the book, because queen e4 would shut you down if you didn't see rook d7. Do I know he missed that? No, I don't know. But I'm just saying, if you saw this, I think you'd say to yourself, oh, right, white is a little bit better. And I don't know, if he has to go here, then you can go somewhere back, probably here, you know. And you're a little bit better. You're a little bit better. It's still loose. All kinds of things are happening. But I feel like, yeah, you're a little bit better. Whereas this thing, yeah, puts pressure under black. But like I said, I think eventually g6 and black should be fine. And that's kind of what happens here. So knight e8, queen h5. I was also unthrilled with this move because it really encourages sacking the exchange now with g6, queen g4, knight e5, queen g3, and then the very nice bishop f6. So we're just going to give the thing. One thing this made me realize actually is, so I did this video about why setting openings won't take you to the next level. And as one of the critiques that I got from it was, people critiquing the video, was that I wasn't, that like I had studied the openings long ago or something, and now I'm able to use that knowledge maybe without thinking about it. And if I was going to believe that, is that I feel like there are a number of positions that I had when I was a kid, and I got murdered 1,000 times playing the Scheveningen back then. That was before the Keras attack knocked the Scheveningen out. And there were a lot of positions like this where a knight was on e5, and it was just going to completely hold the position together. And that's what I see happening here, and that's what Karpov sees, and he sees that there's really no way through. And of course, it's a terrible thing that this pawn is weak on e3, not so much that we're going to take it, but because it means that our knight really can't ever move. It's a blockader of a bad pawn. Okay, so I think Karpov already thought he was, I don't know if he thought it was better, but, you know, I'm sure he was liking his position. And that's what's going to maybe lead him to go on tilt. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn the little computer on. So let's see what he says. Oh, very interesting. I'm wrong. It likes bishop h6 a lot, but it wants to steal the pawn on b7. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to turn this thing off again. So let me just share with you what it's saying. Bishop h6. Oh, wait a second. It's saying knight e5 and then queen b7, but that makes sense to me. I thought knight e8. There's something maybe dramatically wrong. Okay, let's see what it's saying. It's saying queen h5. It wants what Kasparov did. g6. Queen g4. I bet it might change its mind about this. Knight e5. It still wants. And I like bishop f6 a lot, like Karpov played. And it's saying bishop f8 is an advantage for white. It's changing its mind. It's changing its mind. It still thinks white's better. I'm just going to go ahead and say I don't know if I agree here. To me, this is a very, I'm about to say something dumb, like axiomatic position, where the knight on e5, like I said, I feel is holding everything together. And it's saying like bishop e4, knight d6, bishop d5, and it's saying white's better. That's changing its mind a little bit. To me, this is classic full compensation for the knight. Okay. What was interesting, though, was at least up to this point, the comp is on the side of the computer. Actually, the computer. That was a funny slip. On the side of Kasparov. So, one thing about this game that's amazing is that Kasparov finds a way to keep it going. So, bishop b5. I think actually he had the same sensibility that I did just then. That if you take the rook, you're going to have nothing. And so he says, I don't want the exchange. Instead, I want the following position. Rook d6. And I think the next bit is forced. Here, here, and back. I looked at for a while at knight h5, but I couldn't see anything too sensible after, say, f5. Like, you can land the knight on f6, but again, the knight on e5 is saving everybody. That's my sense, anyway. So, knight f5. And here's a really interesting moment that yeah, it's funny about chess beliefs. I think, yeah, Karpov wanted to play for a win here. It's not like he needed to win at this stage of the match or anything. It's like the match is around equal now, as far as I know. And the simplistic way to probably play this, the natural move would be f6, but the problem is then you run into like this, I think, forced draw variation. Maybe you can try king h8 or something, but after knight h6, you're going to have to figure something out. Okay, so f6, let's say the safer move. Karpov says no. Rook a d8, and check it out, rook f6. Now, one thing that I think I do understand about the following mistake, I don't even know if the computer might not even say it's a mistake, but I think definitely on a human level it's a mistake, is that, I think I've said this on the show before, this thing that Magnus said about knowing when to go all in and when to pull back. And in this position, definitely, I think Black should be thinking about rallying the wagons here. And instead, he goes for it here with rook d2. And this is just, I think, way too dangerous. But, obviously, if you're playing in the heat of the moment, it's not immediately obvious. Let me show the idea. Well, I might go back and ask the computer what it thinks too. Now, that move, king h1, I can imagine playing without even thinking about it, in that you really are saying that the rook on d2 is worthless here. This position it's a hard thing for me, I think, Karpov too, to understand when he got here that this was going to be that dangerous. I think intuitively the sensibility is like, oh, my queen is going to defend everything going backward. But to share what I think the problem is like, let's say a5, knight e7, king h8 is really scary. So to me, like, king g7 is the critical move. And I want to say, as a human, I looked at this for a while, and it took me a while to even understand, like, what white would do. I'm not even, again, I haven't looked at the computer, but I think it's this move, which has two threats, like, obviously, the mate, and then rook h4, which is the major bummer, I think. So, for example, and all these other rook moves, the first intuition would be rook f5 or rook here, rook there, but they're all not doing anything special. You want to play queen f6. So that move is the only one, though, where you got a second threat, let's call it that. So maybe I'll check that with the computer, but that's like the problem that Black is facing here, is the knight e7 check. And amazingly, Karpov just completely collapses here. It would not surprise me if we turned on the computer and the computer said Black's still okay. Let's first show you the way it went down. Knight d4. And there's just a basic problem of how do you defend the knight. So it went like this. and he lost on time. This is, loads of people, of course, analyze this after the fact. I'll show how this could go. And if I remember right, it's like this. Queen e7. This is forced. Rook f7. Rook f7. King g8, exclam. So, you are preventing the mates and you're preventing queen d8. So that's clever. I'm sure neither player actually saw that during the game. e4, super exclam move, so that you can cut the queen and then maybe then use the pawn to advance. This seems forced. This seems forced. e5. The only way out now is rook f8. We play e6. Oh man, really tough. Really tough. Now the threat is queen f6 and e7. So g5 is your only shot, my sense anyway. And then we can do this terrible thing to you. And then there might be other ways, but this is amazing. h4. And if you let me get here, of course, it's over. So h5. Check to the miserable king. And then they've got, get out. This is all Soviet analysis, I think, here, king g1. And then the idea is I'm going to push this thing. And it's going to be the full brutality. For example, b5 or the other one. g4. And then some kind of thing like that. Okay, so let's go back and we'll take a look at some of these positions where first let's start at the end. We'll start at the end and work back. And the first question is going to be, in this position, is white really like either winning or clearly better? I was right. I was right. Did I know what move he should do? No, I did not know. So this is the thing, like Kasparov's putting pressure, and objectively, it's nothing. The computer is here. It's totally weird. It's saying a6 is also drawing. No, now it's changing its mind. So let's try what it's saying. Rook d7 to stop knight e7. Just to simply stop it. And right, the rook really wasn't doing enough on d2. Okay, computer changing its mind. This is interesting. So knight h6. Now, if you play king h8, then we got snock and snick in, mating. That's nice. So king g7 is forced. And here the computer's coming up with this nice move. Okay, and this, wow, amazing. So actually, the computer is saying this is still winning. And the variation it's giving is f6 and then rook f6. So honestly, from a human perspective, the guy's going to play f6 and you get to play rook f6. Yeah, you shouldn't be complaining about that one. Right, here's an example of a bummer. Here, f6, queen g4, and then I guess you're toast here because I'm snipping on d7. Okay, cool. So in fact, if rook d7 is out, this position is already done, I guess. Because, right, like the variation I gave with a5, let's see if I was right actually about that. So my variation was a5, knight e7, king g7, and, right, I got it, buddy. Oh, well, we better check it. It's saying, it's saying, I'm sure it's going to change its mind here. It's saying h5 here, which is totally obscene. You know, I just assumed it wasn't going to work. No, it's not going to work. Knight f5, king g8, knight d4. And look at this beautiful thing. Knight d7, and I've got queen d5. I might also have rook f7. Queen d5 is just a nice move. No, that's bad business. That's bad business right there. Okay, beautiful. So again, let's work backwards a little bit and not do... in this position, I'm assuming he's still fine. Right, rook d2 was no bueno. Something like rook d7 here. Though definitely, from a practical point of view, wrong to allow the rook to f6. And right, Nikitin's, there's one fun thing about this Nikitin analysis is like a lot of it is just wrong. And I mean fun because it's like, it's, you know, it shows what these positions look to a strong GM and honestly a team, because they would have studied this afterwards. Right, so he's saying f6. The computer is saying f6 as well. Okay, so, but rook a d8, definitely the move of a dude who thinks maybe he is better. And I honestly, like, right, I'm so happy with that knight on e5 as like this, the defensive savior of all saviors, that I would have been tempted to think the same way. Let's look at the bishop b5 decision from the perspective of the computer here. The computer, of course, is going to find so much obvious stuff, you know, and it's going to seem obvious in hindsight. Like, here's an obvious plan that no one talked about. Bishop e4 intending bishop d5. I didn't think about that in my post-game analysis or anything like that. The computer still wants bishop f8. I don't want that move, though. I think bishop e4 is actually even stronger than bishop b5. Let's say knight g7. And then, right, we can do something simple here. We go snip, snip, and then put my bishop there. How can I be... I mean, the same way I believe in the bishop on the knight on e5, I believe on the bishop on d5. So, right, if queen e7, we've got bishop g5. If queen e8, which looks ugly, something like bishop f4, and we got to say, like, white has a nice little pull here. So even here, this was not so simple. And let's double check this bishop f6 move, which Nikitin gave. Yeah, I guess. It's funny, this, you know, the computer really changes everything. Like, to me, I felt going over this that black was holding the balance, or even that I'd rather be black. And maybe even still part of me wants to rather be black. But bishop f6. Yeah, white has more than one move, not just the weird bishop b5 move. Okay. So, amazingly, I guess what we're saying is, let's go back to this position with knight e4. This position, I think, could probably be called the theoretical position. I don't think it was for them. I think it was new at the time, but I think this is a theoretical position. After which, I guess white's just simply better. Hydrate. Thank you very much. I do need a hydrate. Okay. So let me just say about my road to 2500 here. This is mostly for my own benefit. The kids, like, the first sign of this COVID thing relenting on me is that the kids have gone to school, and I have, like, the house is silent for the first time in months, and I'm hoping it's a beautiful time. I need to get out of Baltimore. If someone knows a cool city I should move to, tell me. But I think the chess study can now begin in earnest. I like my at the beginning of my Road to 2500 series, I would always begin by talking about like the fitness level. That just collapsed, dude. That totally collapsed. So like getting on track with that stuff, man, that's key to my life, as well as like now I can do stuff like Title Tuesday. I don't believe in Blitz, but I think it'd just be fun for me to play a couple of games and get like some good, at least some openings. I'll have some experience with that. And definitely more like fun stuff with the dojo. Hopefully, more like earnest training stuff is what I'd like to do. A really cool thing. I love what David Proust did. He got a lesson from Shanklin. We got that video up. Really kind of cool idea to combine like our own Twitch stuff with like actually learning, which is what I would like to do myself. And yeah, I think soon we're going to get back. And I've got 2 years to make it back to 2500 to be part of the U.S. Senior. And I need to be 2500 plus, I think, if I want to be on that U.S. Senior team. Those are the dreams, anyway. All right, everybody. I will be back next week. And yeah, I think now, like, now I can move into it. Hopefully, there's like for the first time, there's some hope on the horizon. All right. I don't believe in Blitz. No, just in terms of I don't think it's going to help your chess. I think it can be relaxing. I think it can be fun, but I think it's a mistake to think that it's going to help you. All right, with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you guys next time.